What's up, Fort Knox? It's your girl Riley Knox here. It's been a while, I know that, but I'm happy to be back with a new video for you guys, and I'm so excited to talk to you guys about something today that is so personal and also hopefully is going to be very informative. As you saw in the title of this video, I'm talking today about being transgender and about dating being transgender. It has been something that I've been wanting to talk about for a long time, just hadn't gotten around to doing it. And I know a lot of you have been commenting and on my page and also on my Instagram, on my channel and also on my Instagram page, that you want me to talk about the subject. And I really wanted to sit down and really detail different things that I wanted to talk about. And I'm going to talk about today, my experience being transgender, also what it's been like dating, being transgender, when you tell a guy, when you don't tell a guy, all these different things, how soon, and what it's really been like. And the reason that this really kind of sparked a lot of, I guess, really made me really want to do this video is on Valentine's Day, I posted a bunch of sexy pictures and, in lingerie, just because it was Valentine's Day and it was red and I was just kind of feeling some type of way, just like I wanted to, show off my body or just, be sexy on Instagram, which is something I don't typically do. Or I've gotten away from doing as I've gotten older, made it more just about, performing. But I posted that I was single. And so people were hitting me up in my DMs and like, what? You're single? How are you single? Like, what are you talking about? Like, because I never talk about whether I'm dating somebody or who I'm dating, any of that. I always keep that kind of private, but I felt like now was a time for me to just talk about this. And I wanted to talk about, the struggles that we go through, not only just in dating, but also just specifically for me, dating and being transgender. And so if you guys haven't already gathered from this, I am transgender. For those of you who do not know, I transitioned about 15 years ago, and obviously been trans and felt trans my entire life. I won't go into too much of the backstory because I think I'm going to do a separate video for just growing up and what it was like when I finally decided to be to live in my truth. And so I'm definitely going to, I probably will make this a series because I want to be as helpful as possible, and I want to get the conversation going about this. It's not always about glam and backstage at, the VMAs or, backstage at my shows and what it's like putting together a concert. I want to let you guys in on a little bit of my life and just personal things. And even though I'm in the public eye, and even though, people might think that, things are perfect or whatever, it's not perfect. And I struggle just like everybody else. And I also want to really do this to just help all of those people out there, whether they're young people or my age or older, that are struggling with dating being transgender, because it is quite a struggle. And if you're transgender, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And who knows, maybe this also helps somebody who's actually interested in someone who is transgender or is dating someone who is trans. But like I said, 15 years ago, I started my transition, and you got to understand that for me, 15 years ago was a very different time in America to be transgender, simply because we didn't have as much representation. We didn't have the Isis Kings or the Laverne Cox or the Janet Mock or shows like Pose, with Angelica Ross and all these beautiful trans women and positive stories about trans women. In the past, what you saw on TV about trans women was, the most you saw was something like Maury Povich or Jerry Springer, just something salacious that was trying to, is it a man or is it a woman, or is it, these different things, or people just acting out as buffoons. And that was so crazy for me because that was not who I was. That wasn't, anything of who I was or who I was aspiring to be. And, it wasn't until I saw who is now one of my best friends, Isis King, on America's Next Top Model. That was the first time I saw somebody that I was just like, oh my God, she's like what I am, and she became like my hero, without even knowing it. Like she was a hero for so many people, and it just so happens that my hero became one of my best friends. And but there was not a lot of representation, and this was very hard because I felt like in that time that I had to be very hidden. I had to be very like guarded, and I used to do this thing like before I went out, like, am I presenting as female enough? Am I, how does my voice sound? And, how am I, like, is everything perfect? And very just kind of like, I never wanted to walk into a room and be the transgender person in the room, because then people would whisper, and I would hear people whisper and say like, oh, that's a man, or like all these different like, very offensive things. And sometimes they weren't really even whispering. They were just kind of, it's like as if they wanted me to know that they knew that I was transgender, And that was really hard. It was a very, I was just being who I am, and trying to just live my life in my truth. And it was quite a struggle because, I was standing out. And, luckily for me, I do present more as female, and I may, be what a lot of people consider passable. And so I'm smaller. Like for those of you who've never met me in person, I am only 5'6", and I, wear an average size shoe, average size hands, like, very, very girly, very feminine. But a lot of it, when I first started out, because I was still trying to figure out, what my style was and how I wanted to look, and just kind of, new to it, and the makeup and the hair and all these different things, and just trying to present as much as possible. So it probably was a little more obvious to people at that time. And that's neither here or there. Like, that's just, it is who it is, and it is what it is. And for a lot of people who are transgender, who may be super, super tall and, doesn't present as female as or as feminine as they would like to, or as people think that they should, it is a little bit of a struggle for them, and they may not be as passable. But the thing is they're still living their truth the same way that I am. And I feel like, those girls are so brave and are so living their life. Doesn't matter what anybody thinks, like whether it's obvious or whether it's not obvious. Like, it's like, I don't care, I'm just gonna be who I am. And I think that's just the most amazing thing, especially in this day and time. But we're talking about 15 years ago. This was really hard, and I had a lot of girlfriends who were all cisgender females. And for those of you who don't know, cisgender means that you were assigned in the body that you at birth that you identified with, that they're not transgender women. And so for a lot of the girls that I hung out with, they didn't really understand the struggle as much. Also because I kind of just looked like them, as I started to, develop more and started to, do my hormone therapy, and, things were softening out. And so we go to clubs, and I'd be like the first girl to get hit on, and they're just like, we don't get it, right? Like, what is that about? I get hit on, and, I wanted to just kind of exist in those, predominantly straight clubs, as I never wanted to walk into the room and be the transgender girl in the room. And I wanted to just be me and just have fun. And, because of the way I looked, I got hit on a lot, and I got, approached by a lot of different guys. And it was always like, when it first started happening, it was a double kind of thing. It was sort of like, I feel like, kind of like, oh, this feels good that I'm getting this attention from these guys, because they, clearly just see me as, female, and they're really like attracted to me. But then there was also the thing of like, oh my God, are they going to realize it before I, like, before I tell them, like, are they going to see it? Is it going to be, just kind of like guarded in that way? And I always felt like I felt like the thing, me being transgender, the thing that I thought that, set me back was actually the thing that I now know that sets me apart. I used to think that it held me back, being transgender, because, I'm having to go through all these things where I'm having to tell these guys, I'm transgender. I had this speech, and it was almost like I had done it so many times that I would meet a guy and he didn't know that I was trans, and I didn't tell him upon like the first hello, and we'd get to know each other. We'd start texting, or we'd start, talking on the phone, or, even sometimes went to the point of going on a date, and I didn't tell them at first. And they were like, I had to have this speech like, so I have something I want to tell you, and I don't know how you're going to feel about it. And I hope you're still like me after this, but I feel like I need to be truthful with you. See, it's like I have it like, it was like a script in my head. But, I'm different. And I don't know how you're going to feel about this, and I don't want you to be upset about it, but, I'm really enjoying getting to know you. And the reason I didn't tell you is because I wanted you to get to know who I was before you knew what I was. And that, for me, was my speech. And then I would tell them I'm different, and they would be like, what do you mean you're different? Like, I'm not like most girls, or, I can't have your baby, or, leading up to that, instead of just coming out and saying, I'm transgender, And then I would eventually tell them, and I would get several different responses. It would be either, oh, I appreciate you telling me, but I don't get down like that, or, oh, I'm not into that. Or it would be, I'm okay with it, but we can't tell anybody about this. Like, I don't want anybody to know. Or I'd get, well, I've never been with a girl like you before, but I want to try it. And so it became like, either I had to be their dirty little secret, I was their experiment out of curiosity, or, sometimes it even became a fetish, what we in the trans community call chasers, where they're trans chaser. They're chasing girls who are transgender, and they are, and that's just their fetish. Like, they're dating you not because of you as a person, but dating you simply because, they have a thing for trans girls. It would be the equivalent to, only dating a particular race. And I don't mean like a preference. I mean like somebody who just is really like, it's a fetish for them. And if you don't understand what I'm saying to you, I don't know how to explain it to you other than just like, it's not, you're not invested in the person that I am. You're just, obsessed with what I am, and it just kind of feeds something sexually in you. And that didn't feel good. None of those scenarios felt good at all. And, I started to think that, well, yeah, I attract the kind of guys that I like, physically and, and inside and out. But they never saw me as, like, I had a hard time keeping those guys. Or they saw me as like this, they didn't see me as a human being. They just saw me as, this thing, this, secret that they had. And that just really didn't feel good. And the only way that I could describe it now to guys who didn't understand where I was coming from is, suppose you are a black man and you are dating a woman who is white, and she says to you, I always wanted to know what it was like to have sex with a black man. And then she says, I just want to try it. And some guys might be down for that. They might be like, okay, so fine. Like, I want to, it's whatever. Like, guys, it's, it's like a male ego thing. Maybe they're like, okay with it. And then she says, I like you and I think you're cool, but I don't want anybody to know about it because you're black. And, I really like you and I'm really falling for you. And I think we should continue on, but I don't want to really be seen in public with you. And also, I really like you, but I can't take you home to meet my family because they wouldn't understand and they wouldn't like you and they wouldn't like that I'm dating you because you're black. See what I'm going here? It was sort of the same thing. Like, guys would say to me, Riley, you're amazing. You're smart. You're funny. You're pretty. You're successful. You're all these things on paper that we guys love and that we really want. But I don't know how my friends are going to feel about it. I don't know how my family's going to feel about it. I don't, like they're going to look at me different. They're going to think that I'm gay, or they're going to, look at me crazy and wonder what I'm doing. Like no one can know about this. So I had relationships with guys who I solely saw in my home or in their home, and typically at night. And even if it wasn't just a sexual thing, it was a thing where it was, I only saw them, like in my apartment. Like even if we just sat there and we're watching TV or we're cuddling, whatever. And I had boyfriends, like people that I considered like I'm in a relationship with, but I'm never saw in the light of day, never went out in public with. And just imagine all the things we do, whether you're trans or you're not, to build ourselves up, and all the things that we do to really, work on ourselves and our self-esteem. And then imagine you do all of that and you are with someone who is afraid to be seen with you in public, or afraid to be seen with you in any capacity, or have people know it, And the thing I know for sure is that when guys meet a girl who is amazing and they are dating her and they really are starting to like get closer to her, you want to start taking that girl out and you want to show her off, and you want your friends to meet her and like, look at this wonderful person that I'm, with. And I rarely got that, so I felt like I had to hide it. So I did something that I do not recommend. And I want to explain this to you guys in the best way possible, so that you understand where I was in my life at this point and the way that I was feeling, which doesn't excuse bad behavior, but it also does not, I want you to understand that I'm telling you this story or these stories because I want girls who are trans to not do it the same way that I did it, Let me first off start by saying there's no such thing as one singular trans experience. There's no such thing as like, oh, so first you take your hormones and then you go and get this done and then you go do this and then you start dressing this way and then you start. There's no such thing as that. Like every trans experience is a singular experience in itself. There's no prerequisite. There are girls who decide to get surgeries. There's girls who decide not to get surgeries. There's girls who decide to get on hormones. There's girls who don't want to be on hormones. They just want to live however. And there's girls that want to go, under the knife and do certain surgeries. And then there's some that are like, no way, I would never do that. So every experience is different. There's no such thing as like, this is the way you have to do it. I'm only speaking from my experience. But back to the thing that I was doing. This is very dangerous. I was going out on dates I would meet guys, and because I wanted them to know who I was first, and not what I was, which I thought would soften the blow, I would not disclose to them that I was transgender. And I would go meet them and just be like, regular girl, and try to be just as girly as possible. And, I'd lower my voice a little bit, and I would, be like very like obscure, and also just kind of try to be the most perfect girl that I could be, perfect girl. And I would go out on dates with these guys and they'd get to know me, and I would let a lot of time pass, and I would fall for them and they'd fall for me. And then all of a sudden I would say, I got something to tell you. Now, the reason this is so dangerous is, what if the guy had found out before I told him and wanted to hurt me because of it? Because there are some people out there that are, crazy enough to hurt you for not disclosing this, this information to them. And it can be very scary. I have known people who have had very terrible things happen to them, that have been killed, that have been beaten up. And luckily that never happened to me. But where I was in my life was at a point of low self-esteem, because I was attracting these guys, but like I would get rejected, once I told them that I was trans, or they would try to treat me like I was a fetish, and or an experiment, or a dirty little secret. And because of that, it caused me to do some reckless things, which were going out on dates with guys, not telling them. And it got, one time it did get very scary. Actually, no, twice got very scary. And that is something I do not recommend. I think, for me, full disclosure up front is the best way that to do it for me now. I think you have to, I don't think just, when you just walk around with a t-shirt on that says, hey, I'm trans, or you don't have to do that unless you want to. Hey, I'm very proud now of being transgender, but that took a lot of work. It took a lot of time and a lot of self-discovery and struggle and self-love, and a lot of support from my friends and fans and family. And all of that helped to build who I am today. And the person that I am now is like, I'm like, hey, I'm trans, just so you know, I'm transgender. If you want to deal with it, if that's your thing, great. If you're okay with it, that's fine. Get to know me. I always tell guys, who have never experienced dating a trans girl before, to get to know me as a human being. Don't think of it as like, oh, I'm dating a trans girl, or, oh, I want to be with this. Like, if you over obsess about it, that will sometimes be a turn off for me. But also just like, get out of your head that like, oh, it's like you're dating an alien, like somebody that's so different. Because I always believe, no matter what color we are, what our race, our background, our religious beliefs, our political beliefs, we are more alike than we are different. And that's what I feel is the best way to approach dating a trans girl, is that you're just dating a human being. You're dating a person, if it's your first time or you're not familiar with it, because I'll meet guys and they're like, well, what's it like? Like, I mean, what is expected of me, or what do I have to do? Or like, so it's just like, just get to know me. I'm just like anybody else. I'm normal and I'm not normal. My life is not the typical life. But that's more about what I do for a living than it is about, me being trans. And I always say, for me, on a list of things that are interesting about me, the least of them is me being transgender. There's so many more interesting things about me than just harping on that. There are a lot of things that have happened because I am transgender, or the way that I think, or the way that I am because of that. But on a list of things that, are very interesting about me, that's probably the least of them. For me. Might be different for other people, but that's just my opinion on myself. But now I choose to be fully disclosed when I am dating somebody, just because it, not only for safety reasons, but also it avoids a lot of headache. I don't have to just, I don't have to go through that whole speech of like, oh, I don't know how you're going to feel about this, and whatever, if up front. Also, it saves me from getting feelings involved, and like getting to a point where I'm really liking this person, but I'm not sure how they're going to feel about it. It's just like, if we deal with this head on, then I can go into like whether I like them or not. And the same thing for them. It avoids them having to get to know me and then be let down. They know from the beginning, and if they want to deal with it or not. But I get several different things, and, it is very difficult sometimes to disclose that, because I just want to be seen as the person that I am. But, at this point, me being in the public eye, I can't hide it anymore. Nor do I want to, but even if I tried to, I can't hide it. And so that's also kind of like the blessing in disguise that, usually if you know who I am, you know that I'm transgender. There's some people that may not know, because it's not like the sole focus of my work, but I can definitely, I can't hide it. Like, you Google it, so it's not like a big deal. So another thing I wanted to touch on is, I've had people say to me, like, what about like, dating a gay guy? You know, like, wouldn't it just be easier to just date somebody who just like, you know, I'm just like, well, that doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. Because, you know, gay men, I love them. I have tons of friends who are gay. Like, I love my gay friends and gay fans, and but they love my shoes or my hair. They don't in love with me. Like, I feel like when people say that, they don't know the definition of being gay. Like, I'm a woman, albeit I'm a transgender woman, but gay men are attracted to men. And if you are attracted to male energy, if you're attracted to male mannerisms and male thing, like, you're not going to be attracted to me. You aren't. You're not going to want to date me simply because I am such a girl. Like, I'm so like, not even just like with femininity. Like, I'm never going to be that masculine thing that you want me to, like, it's like you're going to be very let down. You know, I think I would have a better chance with dating someone who was bisexual, because then they're also attracted to girls. And I have dated guys in the past that identified as bisexual. Obviously didn't work out for whatever reason, because I'm single. But it just doesn't, it wouldn't make sense for me to date a gay guy. Gay guys are great to be my friend, but they're not, unless they're into girls. And although everything is on a spectrum, you know, like, there's, on a scale of like, how gay are you? How, like, do you like girls or guys? Like the Kinsey scale, like, that is, so I definitely get that. But I definitely think you would have to identify as, for me, I think you would have to identify as bisexual, or at least like into girls and want to be with girls to be with me. You can just be solely gay. I don't know. Like, I think that's more of a question for the actual gay guy. But yeah, you know, but people will say that to me all the time. But, you know, the struggle, I think, you know, I always say it takes a very strong guy. I shouldn't say it's a struggle, but I think it takes a very strong man who is very secure with who he is, to date me. Not saying that if you know, don't want to date me, that you're not strong or secure. It's just that there's a lot that goes into, like, you have to not care what people think of you as a man. You know, whether they're going to think that you're gay, whether they're going to think that you're, you know, look at you funny because you chose to date someone who is transgender. For two reasons. For me, anyway. Two reasons. I am transgender, and I'm also in the public eye. So imagine dating someone who's in the public eye, and say you go out in public and you've got all these people coming up to the person that you're dating that's like, oh my God, I love you. Oh my God, can we take a picture? Oh my God, you know, whatever, which I love my fans. I love people who support me, and I will never say no to a picture. So if you ever see me in public and you want a picture or you want to talk to me, just talk to me. I love it. I love to meet the people, because I don't always get to meet you. Sometimes I'm on a stage and I don't get to see you after a show. So the connection there, I love that. And, you know, just here through the screen, I may not get to connect with you. But imagine dating someone in the public eye and what comes along with that, because people are constantly in my business or want to know personal things about me, or, you know, we might be on a date and people want to come up and, you know, say things to me, or, you know, and all this either attention or, and you want my attention, but I'm having to share the attention with, you know, everybody else. And so it takes a very secure person to date somebody who is in the public eye. But it also takes someone who's secure, as I said, to date someone who is transgender. So marry the two together. So now you're dating somebody who is not only transgender, but also well known for what she does and also being transgender. You marry those two together. You have to be very secure with who you are, and have not only high self-esteem, but be secure enough that it won't matter. Sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied. It won't matter what people are saying about you for loving this girl who is transgender. So, and there are guys out there who are like that. Don't get me wrong. It's not been all, I haven't had, you know, it has not been easy dating, but it hasn't always been hard. I have met guys who were okay with it. I've met some guys who were in the public eye who were okay with dating someone who was transgender. It just, you know, it's a case by case basis. Advice that I would give to people who are transgender, or people who are teens that are transgender, especially. I would say, as far as dating, I would say as soon as you're comfortable, and hopefully that's sooner than later, disclosing that you are transgender, you save yourself a lot of heartache. You'll save yourself a lot of time, and for safety reasons also. That's the one thing that I just feel like you have to be as safe as possible. You want to protect yourself. You want to make sure that you are not putting yourself in harm's way, because there's a lot of people out there who, for whatever reason, want to, may not be okay with the fact that we are transgender. And once they find out, their pride is so hurt, or something within them, it sparks something in them that causes them to be violent or whatever. And you don't want that to happen. But also for yourself, for your heart. You don't want to waste time getting to know somebody and falling for somebody that is not checking for you in the first place. That is not truly going to love you as a person enough to not care what people are going to think, or love you enough to not care what you, how you identify in your gender, And I'm also not saying that there's something wrong with not wanting to date someone who's transgender. There's not. I don't think there's something wrong with that. If that's your preference or you don't understand it. But for me, I'm all about my time, and I don't want my time wasted. So if you're not into transgender people, or you have a problem with me being transgender and you can't date me just as a person, as a human being, then you're not my type anyway. So move out of my way and make room for someone who might actually be into me. And, that really is the gist of it. It has been a struggle. I'm not going to lie to you. For me, personally, dating, because I meet a lot of people. And, I am on dating apps, and I meet guys, and it says in my profile, I am transgender. That's the first thing you need to know about me. And then, I describe other things about myself, but it's just like, I want to know if you're okay with this. If you're not okay with this, then move along. But it has been a struggle, because trying to get guys to see me for who I am and not what I am or what I used to be or how society sees it or how people are. It is getting better, I will say that. If you are a transgender person and you are coming of age in this day and time, you are much more fortunate than I was growing up, because I didn't have representation, for one, but I also didn't have a template. I didn't have anybody to come on YouTube and give me advice about it. You have so much information. We have representation on TV. So it's getting a little bit better, and I think there are a lot more people, especially like with millennials and stuff, that are really opening up. A lot of men who are opening up. If you're into men, if you're not, then women also. It's just, things are changing, and it's getting a lot better, and I really appreciate that. So hopefully it gets a lot better, and maybe one day I won't say to you guys that I'm single. But, and also that's not, I don't want you guys to think that that's just why my relationships have ended or why I'm not in a relationship. But yeah. And if you are single and you're into me, hey, comment below. Or hit me up on Instagram, DM me, whatever. I'm open now. Like I said before, this is something that I want to keep the conversation going. So if you have questions for me, or there's something you want me to talk about on here, I'm going to start doing this a lot more often, talking about my experience being a transgender woman. I want to start a series on that. So, comment below if there's something that you want me to discuss, or there's a question you have, because that's how we grow and that's how we learn, But yeah, click the like, sub, and bell button if you're not already subscribed to my channel. I'm going to keep giving you guys content. I'm so excited about this. I'm going to give you so much more of myself. I promise you. I know I've said that before, but I really promise you, I'm really dedicated. I have so many things coming up. I have so many videos that are ready to go up, and I'm going to give you so much more of Riley Knox. But yeah, like I said, subscribe if you have not already, and make sure you turn on your notifications and turn on the bell and like this if you liked it. And I will see you guys in the next video. I love you all. Bye.